And we're live. Here we go. Okay.
Hey,
Christian, another one of my favorite people to talk to. We love talking about Texas over here. Um, we're gonna give folks a minute or so to join in because this is a live. But for those of you that are already here today, I'm gonna be talking to Christian Carranza, who is running for state house here in Texas in House District 118. And I'm so happy to be able to tell everyone who's running that not only am I talking to a Texas Democrat, but I'm talking to a Texas Democrat in a viable open seat,
that's
which is
right.
like it's like finding a unicorn. This is an incredible opportunity. So Christian, I mean, what the hell is wrong with you that you want to run for state house in the state of Texas?
I know, right? Like I'm working
Yeah.
so hard to make $7,000 a year as a state rep. I'm doing this because I grew up in the community that I want to represent. It's a lot of it is the south side of San Antonio. It's a majority Latino community, really low income. I grew up with a single mom. We really relied heavily on the public schools I went to, elementary school, middle school, high school. And for me, what got me into this fight last cycle, because I ran last cycle and I just relaunched my campaign, is the school voucher fight. So we had 4 elementary schools close in my neighborhood in the school year of 2023, and I dug in a little bit and I looked into it, and I realized a lot of that came from a lack of state funding. So I looked into who my state rep was and decided to run against him.
I mean, I wish that more people had that kind of gumption and audacity in a good way to do that kind of thing. Now that redistricting has gone through here in Texas, the maps were signed into law by Governor Abbott. Um, the current incumbent for this seat has announced that he intends to run for one of these new congressional districts, which means that now you are running in a completely open state house seat with no incumbent, which means that you really do have an opportunity here to put forward your vision of what you think the Texas Democratic Party and people in the state house in general should be doing, should be fighting for. So, I mean, what does State Representative Christian Carranza look like? What are your priorities, and what are you going to be working the hardest to accomplish?
So you're right. So it is a really viable seat, and it's the closest that Texas Democrats came to flipping a House seat last year. So we came within 3 points. And if you look at last cycle, I mean, it was a really hard year for Texas Democrats.
Yeah.
The other, close challenger races lost by like 7 points, 8 points. So this is the only race that kind of like stayed within the same margin as the cycle previously. And I think that's because our message broke through. And I'm running again because I really do feel like this community does not have the representation it deserves. So the issues that I talk about on the campaign come directly from my conversations on the doors. We've knocked over 100,000 doors since we first started this campaign. 10% of that is me. I've knocked over about 10,000, almost 11,000 doors myself. And all the messaging coming from my campaign comes directly from those conversations. And we're just talking about kitchen table issues, pocketbook issues, right? The stuff that affects people every single day. It's like affordable health care. We only have one full service hospital in the south side of San Antonio. We're talking about wages that keep up with all of the grocery prices at HEB. We're talking about just everything that it comes to making sure that our kids are going to good public schools. I mean, public schools are, when I say they're the heart of the community here in San Antonio, I really mean it. We have this thing, it's called the burning question. It's like whenever you meet somebody from San Antonio, the first thing you ask them is what high school you went to, because it tells you literally everything you need to know about somebody. We really identify with their schools. For a lot of us, they're the last remaining safety nets that we have in our community. We rely on our schools for childcare, making sure that our kids have everything that they need to be successful. I went to school where it was all Title I schools. Had free breakfast, free lunch, free after school snack. So, we're talking about the issues that people really, really care about, and those are working class issues.
Mhm. And a sense of community continues to be such a strong factor in so many of these elections, but it's also something that was referenced a lot in the public testimony about redistricting, was making sure that with congressional districts, we were keeping communities together and we weren't, splitting them apart or drawing these congressional maps in a way that would isolate people from their communities. So with this new
Yeah.
redistricting effort, we know that there's already changes in what the representation that San Antonio is going to have because of the announcement made by Congressman Casar about his intent to run in Texas 37. But what does this redistricting effort look like for San Antonio? How does this change the community and the representation that House District 118 would have in their congressional representation?
So, because there's a couple things happening, right? So the redistricting that we've been hearing about is happening at the federal level, it's happening at the congressional level, and then
Hmm.
I'm running at the state house level. So
Hmm.
the District 118, and I want to say this part because I think it's really important. District 118 is also just a really good example of what modern gerrymandering looks like. So after the 2020 census, my neighborhood, Harlandale, like I mentioned earlier, majority Latino neighborhood, it used to be represented all by District 118. After 2020, it's now represented by three districts, three state reps, one neighborhood. So I would go out there, and I was knocking doors and they'd be like, "Oh, can you go to my cousin's house? She lives three streets down. Can you put a yard sign at her door?" And I would like be like, what's the street name?" And I would look at it, I'd be like, "That's not in the district." And people like are always so confused about like who they're voting for, and it makes people feel less engaged to the whole process, because they're just not sure like what they're like who they're voting for, what they're voting
Yeah.
for. And I think that these new lines really just pull Latino voters, and really dilute the voting power for Latinos, right? Because that's what they're doing. They're trying to make sure they're cutting into our community so that we have less of a voice and less representation.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is something that the state house here in Texas is notorious for. This has been a serious issue since 2002 when we had the first redistricting, mid-decade redistricting scheme. So we've seen a lot of people kind of break out, state reps break out in the public eye about their response to redistricting and how they went about handling it. Notable people like James Talarico and Ann Johnson, and then we had the whole ordeal with Nicole Collier Brown being restricted to the state house. Like
Yeah.
if you had been in the state house at the time that this was going on, would you have broke quorum? What would opposition in that moment have looked like for you?
Of course, I would break quorum. This is an attack on our democracy, and we have to be really clear about that. I feel like some of that gets lost in the conversation. I mean, breaking quorum is not illegal, right? It's a tactic that's in the Texas Constitution, and it's used as a tool for state reps, so that way they can push back on these type of things. So I would absolutely be and stand with all the state reps in Texas that left the state. And if I was to be in Nicole Collier's spot and like have to be in the Capitol, I definitely will like, okay, it's really bad, but like I'm addicted to Coke Zeros. It's like I need one. There you go, Diet Coke. You're a DC girly. I'm a Coke Zero
Hmm.
girly. And I just saw that they put Selena on HBO, on HBO Go. So I mean, I'm good. I'm set. Like I would be there, sitting up all night with Nicole, because it's what's important, right? And that's why we need to make sure that we're finding good people, to be state reps and who have the spine and have integrity.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like you're really uniquely positioned as a candidate to run for office here in Texas because you do have so much organizing experience. And the seat that you're running in, to your point, like this is an open seat with no incumbent. It's going to be a midterm year that's likely to favor Democrats. But this is still a seat where you're going to have to do some bipartisan outreach. And if you do get to the state house, you're going to have some bipartisan work. In your time organizing and knocking doors and meeting people where they are, have you seen like common ground through people who are obviously going to vote for you, people who may be hesitant, but are willing to have that conversation with you. Like, what issues are on the mind for everyone? And have you been able to have any Republicans openly tell you, like, I will be supporting you and here's why?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, we're all just people, right? And the folks that live in this community are really rooted here. There's a conversation I remember I had with one gentleman. He's a lifelong Republican. He's lived on his street for like 30 years, 35 years. Like he has the keys to his neighbors' like houses and they have his
Mm.
key. And like can see like the yard signs are like different, right? Like different political yard signs. And I was, like, having a conversation because he was on my list, and I had a conversation with him, and because he was like, "Hey, like, I've heard a lot about vouchers, like, can you explain, what this is?" And I talked to him about it, right? And, I told him, like, it's because he said that he sends his 2 children to private school, and I told him, "That's a blessing that you're able to do so, but what's happening is that 92% of the kids in our state go to public school, and we're defunding and taking money from these schools that need it the most, and we're using that money to give a discount to parents to send their children to private school. And, this gentleman, like, he knows his neighbors, like, he's known them for so long. He doesn't feel comfortable. He doesn't feel comfortable, like, knowing that his neighbors are helping him supplement his kids' private school tuition, right? Like, that doesn't feel right to him. And when I had that conversation with him, and it's a respectful conversation because I feel like we have to start there, with respect, right? Because that's how you're able to actually, like, go in and make people feel like you can find some common ground. He really understood that, and he told me he was gonna vote for me because of that issue.
Well, I feel like public education has been such a place of common ground for so many people here in Texas. Like I've had Republican family members myself ask me about this because they're concerned about it. Um, all this to say, we talked about the issues, we talked about the viability of this seat. But genuinely, like you are a young woman who is Latina, who is running for office in Texas in a post row, post school voucher Texas, willingly signing up to try to go to the state house, like you said, to make only $7,000 a year. Um, what are the challenges of running a campaign like that? Because I know it's not easy, and I know that you have a little bit of a reputation for being a bit of a call time superhero. So, like, what do the day-to-day campaign operations look like for you, and how do you think they may be different for your counterparts who are running for state house and other places?
I mean, I agree. I think that running for office has its challenges, especially when you're a young woman. I mean, I go to events where I'm not talking to voters, maybe I'm talking to donors or, insidery people, and they love to give me advice. Like the first moment, like after I introduce myself, it's like, immediately telling me what I need to do with my campaign without asking what my background is. I've been a community organizer for the last decade, and I've worked at all levels of government and different campaigns. So, but and like I get that stuff happens, and it just gives me an opportunity to prove them wrong and whatever assumptions they may have about me. But I'll say that I think that running for office is a bit easier than people might assume. And I say that because I never want to make anybody feel like they're not able to run for office. I'm a very much a working class person. I represent my community. I look like my community. My paycheck looks like my community. But I'm able to run for office, which is a can be an expensive thing because I am a good fundraiser, right? And I make sure that my campaign has everything that it needs to be successful. And if I think the only thing I really spent on my campaign was I went to my bank and I opened up a business account. I think it was like $20 to do that. And then I started to fundraise into it. And I started reaching out to my people, to my network, to my Rolodex of folks I know. And I started asking them to not just invest into me, but invest in my community. And slowly but surely, I started to grow my big campaign that I have right now. And so I say that to say that like Anyone can do that. If you're willing to make the ask, you'd be surprised how many people are going to say yes to you. And
Mhm.
I've been pretty fearless in the way that I ask, right? Because you get what you ask for and not much of what you don't. And so every single day, I'm willing to show up for my community and make all those asks and raise money and talk to voters face to face. Because that's what my campaign looks like day to day.
Mhm.
It's talking to donors, asking them to invest in my community, and then talking to voters and asking for their support.
Mhm. Well, I know that I can't vote for you because I do not live in House District 118, but if I did, I would vote for you, and I will definitely be making a donation to the campaign. But for those who are watching, who want to get involved, who want to chip in, where can they do that?
You can go to my website. It's christianfortexas.com. And my name, Christian, it's kind of spelled a little different. It's Christian with the K. So it's just all spelled out, christianfortexas.com. And please follow me on Substack. I just got on Substack like a week ago. Um, a lot of what I'm going to be doing on my campaign is lifting up the stories of my community. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing to take on this big fight, and flip the most competitive state house seat in Texas, please follow me and please go to my website.
Well, Christian, it has been so incredible to talk to you. And I will be running some money your way soon. And everyone in the chat who's watching, if you're subscribed to me, go ahead and sign up to help Christian in some way, shape, or form so that we can flip the most competitive state house seat in the state of Texas. Christian,
That's
thank
right.
you so, so, so much for talking to me today.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you for giving me this platform. Like
Of
seriously,
course.
there you have no idea. I found that it's a lot of women that have been helping me throughout the start of my campaign, and I can't even put into words like what it means to me to have other women like you like share your huge platform with me. So grateful, grateful, grateful. Thank you so much.
Ugh, shucks. Okay. Thank you, Christian. All right. Well, see you guys later. Bye.
Bye guys.